And in some Spartanburg schools, employees will see a major change in their paychecks coming up this school year. The Spartanburg District 5 Board of Trustees approved the budget that will give teachers an extra $2,500 raise, and that's in addition to their annual raise. Also, some bus drivers could see a 15% pay increase, which is part of a state mandate. Administrators are also eligible for a 4% pay bump with a 5% raise for all other eligible staff.